going a bit deeper then, in the same way, looking at your breathing, you find that your breathing is shallow, it's fast, it's maybe through an open mouth. That's a sign of stress. And when we're stressed, experience of life is not positive. Right?
Yeah.
You might be feeling more fearful, more restrictive, anxious perhaps, hypervigilant. We're not feeling safe. So our experience of life is going to be negative. On the other hand, our breathing is slower, deep, it's expansive. Well, this soothes our nervous system. And when we're in this state of a balanced nervous system, and there's a sense of safety within our physiology and within our body, and we can start to be creative, we can start to be joyful, we can start to experience life in a very different way. The key thing here is that you can either breathe without thinking about it, and that reflects the state of our nervous system. Then actually by taking control of the breath, we can manipulate the nervous system.
Before we dive into today's episode, please hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us grow and inspire more people on their journeys. Thank you. Hello, Harsha. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Anne. Thanks so much for inviting me on here. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I remember, Harsha, there was a LinkedIn post before and I commented that your story sounds like it could be adapted into script of the film. So if we look at it as a film, we need to start with your background. So can you tell us, please, more about where you come from, about your background, about your childhood, and what was it like growing up?
Sure, Anne. That's so kind of you to say that. Although, again, I'm not sure it was, it's not really sure whether, yeah, maybe some kind of Z grade trauma, but it's all good. It's all good. Thank you for being so kind. Hey, where does it start?
Okay, so I'm originally from the UK, I guess immigrant parents. So my mum and dad are Indian, my father, an eye surgeon, so he moved to the UK 50 years ago. I was born there. And I grew up in a beautiful little town in the north of England called Grimsby. So it was a fun place, you know.
Why are you laughing? What is, I don't know, I don't know the place.
So the name itself, people just laugh because the first part of the name is Grim. And it's actually quite Grimsby itself was an old fishing town. Since the decline of the fishing industry, there are parts of the town that have become quite run down. And Sacha Baron Cohen made...
oh my God, I remember. Yes.
A film about the town, yeah. So it's quite funny when I say I'm from there. I always get that look.
Okay. And sorry to interrupt, but out of curiosity, why did he make a film about that specific town?
I don't know. Do you know what? I haven't even seen the film. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Just he was just trying to make a parody of working class England.
Yeah.
I think Grimsby was a perfect lens into that side of the UK.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's it.
Then, how did you find it, or what was it like growing up in a village? Because I grew up in a village as well, so I guess I can relate. But I would be curious to hear what your experience was like.
Yeah. So look, you know, my parent, dad was a doctor. We lived just outside of the main town, so we weren't really in the thick of it. In a nice-ish area. I went to school 40 minutes outside of Grimsby in the countryside. It was cool. It was free. I wasn't necessarily the greatest academic, even though all my family were academics. I had a good time at school. You know, I loved playing sports. I was really sociable. Other than actually studying, which just didn't interest me. I had a happy childhood. I had everything that I could have needed or wanted from my family, which I'm obviously always grateful for.
And back then, did you have idea about what you would want to become in the future, such as your profession?
So I think the short answer to that is no. There was a lot of pressure. I guess there are listeners out there that come from a similar background, like from Eastern families or Indian families. I think there's just a pressure, right? I think my parents needed to get out of a country that was relatively poor, better life, the standard immigrant story. But Indians want to do it in a very specific way, and it's either medicine, law, or computer science. You know, the very traditional qualifications and careers. Changed a bit now, I'm sure, but back then it was still very, very defined, and there was a lot of pressure. Right, there's just a lot of pressure, like literally there's no question, what do you want to do when you grow up from your parents? It's you will be a doctor, right?
It's kind of expected.
Yeah, totally expected. I mean, my grandfather was a surgeon. My sister was a doctor. My dad, all my cousins and uncles. There's a huge percentage in medicine, right? When you have that drilled in at you from an early age, you kind of go, okay, cool, yeah, all right, I'll be a doctor. But then when you start to think about what you or try to think for yourself or what you want to do, you realize it's not you. But then there comes a point where it's hard to have those conversations, right? It was difficult. The pressure was relentless. So I was kind of like, yeah, cool, all right, I'll be a doctor. But then I was like, fuck you, I'm not going to study. And I actually don't want to be a doctor. And I just rebelled really quite
Yeah,
hard.
yeah.
There were levels to how rebellious, and I was generally pretty good. Maybe across the line on a couple of occasions. Probably not stories for here, but in general, I was all right. But I just didn't enjoy studying. So that took me through, through GCSEs and A levels, and even up to the point of A levels. I did biology, chemistry, and maths again to satisfy.
Did you enjoy it or not really?
No, I really didn't. I just didn't like studying. I really just didn't. And I went to a very academic grammar school where it was. It's one of the best grammar schools in the country. And,
Nice.
everyone else around me was doing pretty well academically. And I don't know what it was. I don't know whether it was just a struggle to focus or just a lack of, like, what was the end? What was the point, right? And I think if it was like, well, the point of studying and getting good grades is to get into the university and a course that you want to do, then maybe I'd have been driven to apply myself more. I was kind of like, well, I don't want to go to uni to study medicine. So what's the point of it all? And then I just think that grew into just a lack of drive in that sense. So I just enjoyed other stuff. I enjoyed socializing. I was pretty
Party
good
life.
I was pretty good at making friends. And I think when you are I think when there isn't, it's easy to lean into that side of life, I think, if there is a lack of focus or there is not a clear intention or goal, which I'm not saying every kid, I mean, a lot of kids probably don't either. But I was surrounded by quite academically driven people in the main. Everyone else is kids in the Indian community, or my dad's doctor friends wanted to be doctors or similar. But I was just like, nah, it's just not.
What was then their reaction when they saw that you don't really want to pursue this type of career?
Yeah, so look, it was just, we didn't really have a conversation about it until I just didn't get the grades to get me into medical school. Or I think it came up, I think I did my first year and it was just clearly obvious that I just wasn't going to get the grades, right, to get into med school. It's highly competitive and I was nowhere near, if we're being honest.
I can imagine it's tough. It takes years and it must be competitive with
super competitive.
A lot of people.
You got to hit straight A's. It just wasn't going to happen. So then it was like, well, what's the next best thing? It wasn't like, okay, right, maybe we should give him a bit of space to think about what he really wants to do in his life and come up with his own plan. It was like, well, okay, well, if you're not a doctor, you have to be a computer scientist. I ended up doing, I ended up getting in through clearing to a computer science degree at the University of Newcastle. And I ended up doing that for like 3 months, and I just realized that I hate
that's not the option.
So I ended up stopping that course, and basically I just stopped that course 3 months in, and I was accepted onto a business management degree. So something that was much more broad. It was just like, I want to be at uni, I need to get a degree. So I did a business management marketing.
And did you do that just for the sake of studying, or did you see future in this direction?
No, I think this was still very much just a sake of studying, for sure. Yeah, I think it was just the thing to do, is to just go to uni. And I think my parents were, if they had accepted the fact that I wasn't going to be a doctor, I think saying to them, right, well, I'm not going to get a degree would have shattered them. So, uni was fun, but again, like, I did enough to get through. The guy that would just be in the library for the last 6 weeks of the term, just cramming. But I'd missed most of the other lectures and just cram at the end just to get my my exams and the
Yeah,
flight
yeah.
ticket. Yeah, I went to Newcastle University, and I don't know if you've ever been to Newcastle. It's a very fun place. Two big universities in the centre of town, and I had a great time there. It was fun. So yeah.
I was expecting, based on your business background, that will be something that you were passionate about, or what was then the journey that led you, to the business work
Yeah,
that you did?
it's an interesting way of looking at it. I like that angle because I wasn't interested in business at university, but I ended up doing quite well in business later on in my life. Yeah, look, it got to the end of uni, doing odd jobs at university. I worked in a bar, I worked in a clothes shop, but literally as soon as uni finished, and a few of my mates were like, "Oh, let's stay for the summer. We'll just work and just we'll enjoy Newcastle in the summer." I think I did it for 2 weeks, and I was just like, "Nah, mum, this. Like, if I'm not at
Yeah.
uni, this is just not. I'm not going to work in a clothes shop. I'm not going to work in a bar. I do want
Hmm.
something. I want something more." So I got home on a Friday, I think, and then I was like, "Right, I want to go to London. I want to go to London. I want to get a proper job." So
Yeah.
I've been speaking to a few. I've been speaking to a few ex-peers. I think it was an older guy who I played football with, and he was in London. So I messaged him on a chat, and he was like, "Look, I'm in recruitment, working for a recruitment company in London. Told me a bit about the job, told me about commission and uncapped potential for earnings." And I was just like, "This sounds pretty cool." I just researched 7 or 8 different companies within a specific field. And on the Monday, I just called them all and just said, "Look, I've just finished university. I'm interested in recruitment." Out of the 6 that I called, 3 called me for interviews the next day.
Nice. Yeah.
So my sister was living in London, studying medicine. So I was like, "Sis, I'm coming to sleep on your floor. Interviews tomorrow. Dad, drive me to the station." And I literally jumped on the train, went down to London. I did interviews all that week, and at the end of the week, I had a job in London. I was starting. So that started my career in recruitment. So I was basically recruiting technologists into the finance world. I don't know. I just really, really at that time, that environment just suited me so well, and the job suited me well. I found a drive that I never thought I had before. I was a young guy, I wanted to make money for sure. I wanted to, more than anything, I think I wanted to prove my family wrong because
Yeah.
ultimately they just painted me out as to be a complete failure because I didn't do medicine and I didn't get great grades or whatever. So I think that was always there, pushing me and driving me. But then, look, I'm generally good at talking to people. Networking is all about being able to communicate and build relationships, and I found that I was quite naturally good at that. And so that helped me do quite well in that job at an early age.
And do you remember back then when you made this decision, did they accept it? Like that you chose different type of career, or they
No, they
didn't?
didn't. They didn't really know. It's because I feel like I don't want to dig them out too much, right? It's in like they just don't know. They didn't know they had no idea what I was doing. But the first company I worked for had offices in Mayfair, so I literally worked just on the corner of Bruton Street.
Yeah,
And
like
so
fancy area, expensive.
yeah, exactly. So I was getting paid peanuts, but at the time, but look, I was working in nice offices, and I think maybe they were like, "Okay, maybe this is maybe something, some kind of relatively a career for him to start." So I went down and I did it. Long story short, I was in London for 3 years. I moved to a couple of companies in that time, but ended up being a pretty good rookie. I did pretty well in my first few years. And then ended up having an opportunity to go to Hong Kong. It's weird how this happened. I had a really, really good mate who was my best friend at university, and he moved out to Hong Kong to be a broker. And he just called me randomly out of the blue and just said, "Look, Harsh, I've been in Hong Kong 2 months. It's amazing. Find a way to come." So that planted the seed. And then there was just a lot going on in Asia at the time in the industry that I was recruiting in banking finance industry. So I'd spoken to my firm and said, "Look, I want to go to Hong Kong, blah, blah, blah." And 6 months later, I ended up moving out there.
And sorry, didn't you even see any challenges or obstacles because it's so far away, different culture?
No,
I don't know.
and again, it was just no. It was like, this sounds cool. I want to
Mhm.
go.
Yeah.
There was no, I didn't question it. I didn't really have to think twice about it. I was just like, I want to go. Let's make this happen. So I think this probably sheds a lens into my slightly impulsive nature at the time, but I didn't have anything to lose. You know, I did well. I bought a flat in London, just rent that out. No ties, no girlfriend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just just get out there and make it happen. So yeah, I worked for the same firm that I worked for in London for a couple of years, or about 18 months. And basically, I ended up becoming really good friends with two other guys in Hong Kong that had come out to do the same thing from London, my competing firm. We ended up best mates. There became an opportunity to join them in starting a business together.
And sorry, before moving on, what was it like, your experience when you moved over? Because obviously it was a different place, culture, people. So did it meet your expectations, or were you surprised, or what was it like?
Immediately, it was like London. It was like London, like on steroids. It was just
Oh, really?
amazing.
Yeah.
So vibrant.
Hmm.
Everything is condensed, so you can go to the gym in 3 minutes. You could be at a restaurant in the next 2 minutes. You can be in a bar in the next. Everything is so close together, um, and just a community of people. Everyone is out there for a reason. Everyone had the exact same mentality. You didn't
Hmm.
need to meet 10 people to find one or two people that you connect with. Everyone you speak to, you connected with straight away. And so the
Hmm.
culture and the environment was just amazing. It was like, honestly, I had the best time there.
Oh,
You know,
it's glad to hear
you know,
that. Yeah.
yeah, it was fun. It was really, really fun. People that wanted to just do things and yeah, and enjoy life and also do well at work. So it's good.
And although you live in a different place now, but would you be able to compare what was it like before and what was it like now in Hong Kong? Although I don't want to discuss any political situations, but you
Yeah,
know.
no, look, I think it's changed a little, right? As in through the lens of being an expat there, right? So I think it's very different for people for Hong Kong, for locals. I think I have friends, most friends that are still living that expat life in Hong Kong, and it's it still has its vibrancy. Although things have changed a little bit,
Mhm.
but then politically, obviously, there's been a much bigger shift. And I think if you are someone who's from Hong Kong, I think maybe life is much more different. So that's all
Yeah,
I'd like to say
yeah.
about it. But I still love to go back. Still a super, super cool place. Perfect, um, weird and crazy mix of Western and Eastern life. And it just all comes together in a chaotic and very fun way. So yeah, Hong Kong will always have a place in my heart for sure.
Yeah, sounds exciting. I would love to visit one day as well, but
Yeah, it's an awesome
not
place.
yet. So then I assume that you were about to set up a company with your mates from Hong Kong. So can you please continue with that?
Yeah, look, I think I always wanted more. I realized that being an employee, there was limits to that.
Yeah.
And especially in that industry where really, if you were good, people just dealt with you because of you and not really the company that you worked for.
Hmm.
So I think once I had that confidence to be like, well, I don't really need what they provide. That is too much in terms of what I'm taking from the revenue that I'm generating. My two business partners felt the same. A few things happened that probably don't need to get into right now, but a few things happened. I had an opportunity to go join their ship basically early on, and I jumped at the opportunity. Um, and over an 11, 12-year period, we did really, really well. We combination, we all had complementary but different skills. We were all very driven in different ways, and we built a fantastic company. And yeah, it was from a from a financial perspective, I did much better than anyone I think I knew would have been expected of me, and even that I really expected myself. Yeah,
But
you know,
it sounds like you made it sound easy, but I assume that it wasn't as easy, or there are always challenges when starting and running your own business. So was it actually easy for you, or was it challenging, or what? Because as you said, the environment sounds like with people, were motivated, hardworking, and everything. So what was it like to run a business in Hong Kong?
good question. it wasn't easy, right? Look, nothing is easy unless you get extremely, extremely lucky. I think in the early days it was fun. I had a different perspective on life then. I didn't necessarily think too deeply, and I was just in it, And we were working super hard, making money, and enjoying everything that Hong Kong had to offer at weekends and holidays. So restaurants, nightlives, cool party scene, playing for good football teams, going off on cool little adventures around Asia. From Hong Kong you can go anywhere. So it really was, it was a fun time. But, things changed, I think, as I was maturing as a person. The business continued to mature. We grew the team. We were making more and more money. Because of something that happened at the same time that I started the business, which funnily enough ended up with me leaving my career in the business in the same light as well. So should we talk about that? Is this a good time to kind of pivot in that direction?
Yeah, if you're comfortable sharing that, feel free to do so.
Absolutely. Literally, I think a year in to starting the business, or even less, maybe 6 months in, mum's health, there was something weird going on with my mum's health. So this would probably be 12, 13 years ago now. She was literally like effervescent, super young. I'd be with her in the street shopping, and if I said, "Hey mum, what about this?" someone would be like, "What, mum? We thought she was either your sister or your girlfriend. She can't be your mum. She looks so young. She had no bad habits, looked after herself, very vibrant lady, strong personality." As soon as I got to Hong Kong, she was having a few. She's like, just felt weird. She said, "I feel weird. I feel like I'm losing my balance." And we were just like, "Yeah, whatever. You're like, there's nothing wrong." She started having more and more falls. And as this progressed, we did some tests, and tragically and devastatingly, she got diagnosed with a very rare neurological disease called MSA. So it's multiple system atrophy. It's, I guess, similar to Parkinson's, but maybe you could 10x it. It's the progression, the symptoms, I would say, are more aggressive from what I saw with my mom. It was obviously a huge blow, but I questioned what I was doing in Hong Kong. Should I go back? But my parents were like, "Look, right, you can't change this, and you being back isn't going to change it either." And actually, my mum was like, "What's giving me like the small pleasures in my life now is seeing you guys do well." And she's basically like, "If you finally found something you're good at and you're doing well, don't go mess it all up just for me. Come back and see me as much as you can. You live your life, because I'm going to get a lot of pleasure in that." So pretty amazing for her to do that. I continued my career in Hong Kong and my life in Hong Kong. I met my wife Jane, had 2 kids. All throughout this time, I was traveling back 3 times a year as much as I could. But when she eventually passed away from the illness, which was degenerative and a declining illness, that's when things really started to shift in my mindset. This would have been now, so she had the disease for about 10 years, so this would have been 3.5 years ago. As soon as she passed away, it was just a huge amount of reflection. And I was just like, look, what am I doing right now where I am doing very well financially, but that's probably the only real positive in this particular career right now, I felt, because I was super stressed. Again, none of this is easy. And I think the more senior I got, it felt like the stakes were getting higher and higher. And that created a lot of pressure. So I was super stressed. I was really in that expat lifestyle of work hard, play hard at the weekends. That was taking its toll. I had 2 little kids who I barely saw, never saw them in the mornings. I'd see them maybe 10 minutes at night if I managed to get back from bedtime. Weekends, I was either hungover or still stressing about work, so never really present. And I was just like, look, it's really not worth it. I've got to a point where I was okay financially. I've never been one to have like crazy expectations on stuff like houses, cars, watches, there's I appreciate things, but I kind of felt that I didn't, like, the cost of continuing wasn't worth those things. So I made a decision to leave the business. I gave the boys, my business partners, a year's notice, but I was like, look, I'm going to make some plans to transition out. I need to do something different after what's happened. That was the starting process of a big change in my life and my career.
And were your partners understanding of this decision?
So yeah, they were. I think we'd been through quite a lot together. We were super close, like best men at each other's wedding, MCs at each other's weddings. But extremely driven and professional at work, which was why we ended up doing so well together. They were understanding, even if it came as a bit of a shock, maybe initially, but we had a huge runway to prepare and plan for my departure, and in the end, everything was fine. The business at that point wasn't about one person, and they're extremely talented at what they do, and they went off to achieve even greater things since my departure, which I'm always happy for them for that. So look, that started my transition out. At the same time as my mum's passing, then I had like another aspect of my life that I needed to manage, and that was the grieving process. She passed away. I came back to Hong Kong. Oh no, I didn't. She passed away. I was away from Jade and the kids, my wife and kids, for about 3 weeks, doing funerals and spending a bit of time with family. Got back to Hong Kong. Was just like, right, straight back into work. I didn't really give myself any time. I was still in that mindset of like, just life goes on, and I have to just be strong and carry on. But after a few months, I randomly just stumbled into a documentary on Wim Hof. Right? It's infamous documentary now on Vice magazine. If you haven't seen it, it's a really good one. An insight into his life. And I was like, this guy, I mean, he's so charismatic, right? I was immediately hooked on him as a person and his journey. I started practicing the breath work. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. My mood has just changed immediately. Felt like I had like a big shift in my energy when I did it. I was still super competitive, so I was like, whoa, you can hold your breath for like 3-4 minutes, not really understanding like what was actually really going on, which we may get to later. That was just my start of breathwork, was Wim Hof. And so as I was doing this 12-month transition out of the biz, I started practicing just recreationally, just practicing a bit of breathwork, Wim Hof's technique. And then when I finally left Hong Kong, we moved to Spain to be closer to England, but not quite England. We weren't ready for that. So we did a 2.5-year stint in Spain, where I just took a complete step back from work. I was a full-time dad, spent a lot of time with the kids, and practicing more and more breath work, learning more and more about it. And it got to a point where I wasn't just knowledgeable about Wim Hof, but other modalities of breath work like the Oxygen Advantage and some performance breathing stuff. And I decided to get certified and teach it. So that was kind of like the start of my breathwork journey. It's kind of those three things. It's like breathwork, my mum passing, realizing I was burnt out and needed a shift from my career. And it all kind of came to head at a similar-ish time. And out of that came Harsha, the breathwork coach.
Are you looking to elevate your online presence? Check out Trailblazed, our digital marketing agency. Whether it's standing out on social media, crafting a stunning new website, or developing impactful visuals, Trailblazed has got your back. Visit trailblazed.digital and reach your online potential today.
And so, when you spot Wim Hof, the documentary, for the first time, was it literally just a coincidence?
Total coincidence. Yeah, I think I was just feeling totally shit. It was really low, and I think I was just scrolling on YouTube, and I just found the documentary, and that was it.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I don't remember when I came across Wim Hof for the first time, but sometimes you see some opinions that he's, I don't know, maybe some kind of charlatan or fraudster, or I don't know. So can you say what's your opinion on this, to people who have this opinion, to prove them otherwise?
I don't know if I can prove them otherwise, right? Because there is a lot of what he says that just isn't true, unfortunately. And I love Wim Hof. He's done he's a legend. He's done so much for the world. He's made such a big impact. His footprint's huge, right?
And some crazy records as well.
Amazing. And he's done everything. You know, he's just an incredible human being. Just in terms of like his mentality and the stuff that he's done. It's just incredible. But I'm not against his method either. There are great benefits to his method. But most people are unaware of what's actually happening in their physiology, in their bodies when they're doing it, and they're not applying it in the correct way. Actually, can make people. It can actually do more harm than good. I kind of talk about this a lot. Like I don't like to I'm not going to sit here and discredit Wim Hof, and he's. I said I love him as a human being and as a person, but yeah, there's just some of the things that he says about both ice and cold exposure and his breathing technique that are just not true.
Do you think he says that, I don't know, that he doesn't realize or on purpose as advertisement?
No,
or
I don't. I think it's just what he believes, and he's just got such huge self-belief through the things he's achieved. I just think he just thinks that's right. But there's now just so much more research into breath work, cold exposure. So maybe it's just information that wasn't there at the time to help form his beliefs around what he's teaching. He just hasn't looked at it into maybe that level of depth. Yeah.
And out of curiosity, did you have a chance to maybe meet with him?
No, do you know what? His certification was the one that I wanted to do the first. They stopped the intake. It was the start of the craze. So everyone wanted to be a Wim Hof instructor, so I wasn't able to do his certification. And I ended up doing the Oxygen Advantage, and then it was this certification that I actually learned about what was really happening with breathing and the physiology behind it. But yeah, but I would love to meet the guy, of course.
Yeah, me too. I heard like some people who climbed mountains in just underwear and together, experience.
Exactly. I mean, yeah. There's so many stories of that. He's helped people achieve some amazing things.
So did you then see this as your new career trajectory, that you want to become a breath coach?
Yeah. And do you know what? Because it had such an impact on me, right? It was in that process where I was experiencing big change. I'd left everything behind. My business, the paychecks stopped coming in, friendship groups. We built a family in Hong Kong over 12 years of friendships. We got to Spain where we knew no one. I was still grieving. I changed to become a full-time dad. There's beautiful parts to that, but there's also just a non-glamorous stuff to that as well. Running a household. So I was experiencing a lot, and the one thing that got me through that was practicing breathwork and developing practice. And so I was just like, shit, if this is a thing, more people need to know about this. Yeah, for sure. That's what started it.
And out of curiosity, back then in Hong Kong, were there any similar techniques or ways how to cope with stress in business world, or people didn't really pay attention to this?
I just don't think so. Still, I think things are changing, right? I think in the last 2 years, things have changed, and I think we're getting much more open and skillful about talking about these types of issues. We say health issues or mental health issues or whatever, but I think there wasn't. We just go out, you just work hard, and then you just go out on the weekends and just get smashed and forget about it all, and that was stress management. Or you go to the gym every day and do a CrossFit workout thinking that that's de-stressing, But that was the way I was dealing with that. I was just like, okay, I'm fine. I did a workout at lunch today. I got a few endorphins. I feel better for a few minutes. It's just masking what was really going on. I think a lot of people do that. I still think, even though we talk about mental health more, I still think it's on a surface level, and the people that really need it the most, I think they still neglect it. The Western cultures of achievement and success, those lifestyle-led ways of life, I still think taking a step back, looking after yourself, if that's at the expense of competition and things like that, I think people still are reluctant. I see that a lot. So even though people talk about it more, it's still not really being implemented.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Yeah. Can we then discuss breathwork in more detail? Can you, let's say, give us a little introduction, maybe for people who don't know anything about it?
Yeah, such a broad topic.
Like a little course.
So we have what's called our nervous system. The nervous system is like kind of like your computer's like background operating system. It controls everything that's happening inside of your body that you don't think about. So it's everything that's outside of your conscious level of awareness, right? So things like your heartbeat, your breathing rate, your digestion, your immunity, it's all controlled by this nervous system. And so you can say then that we experience our life through the window of this nervous system. Then our breath is a direct reflection of the state of our nervous system. So if we link those together, then you can say that the breath is a direct reflection of your experience of life itself. The breath's a pretty big thing if you look at it like that.
Yeah, it's a smart way how to think about it. Yeah.
So going a bit deeper then, in the same way, if we're looking at your breathing and you find that your breathing is shallow, it's fast, it's maybe through an open mouth, well, that's a sign of stress. And when we're stressed, our experience of life is not positive. We might be feeling more fearful, more restrictive, anxious perhaps, hypervigilant. We're not feeling safe. So our experience of life is going to be negative. On the other hand, if our breathing is slower, deep, it's expansive, well, this soothes our nervous system. And when we're in this state of a balanced nervous system, and there's a sense of safety within our physiology and within our body, then we can start to be creative. We can start to be joyful. We can start to experience life in a very different way. The key thing here is that we can either breathe without thinking about it, and that reflects the state of our nervous system. But then actually by taking control of the breath, we can manipulate the nervous system. So this is where the breath is super, super powerful, because it's not a one-way relationship between the nervous system and the breath. It's a bidirectional relationship. So we can choose a desired state and move into it by taking control of the breath and breathing in a specific way. So if we want to move from being stressed and anxious into calm and relaxed, we can breathe in a certain way. Or if we're feeling low, fatigued, we've got low mood, we don't have energy, then we can breathe in a certain way. It's going to elevate us. So I hope that was a useful description.
I think that's something that definitely would be helpful for a lot of people, because obviously everyone gets stressed once in a while, and I assume that it will take longer to expand on this. But can you summarize maybe how to get from that negative experience to the positive one thanks to breathing?
Sure. There are a few ways that we can do this with the breath. But like if we keep things super simple, just slowing the breath down and making your exhales longer than your inhales. Let's say, for an example, I'll put this into context. Like our general breathing rate, some will breathe maybe 14 to 18 times every minute. Okay. And in a stress state, that might increase even more. Okay. That might be from 18 to 22, 24 times. Okay. So we can dramatically slow down the breathing to manage that experience of stress. Okay. So let's say we breathe in for 4 seconds and out for 6 seconds. That'll bring our breathing rate down to 6 breaths per minute. The exhale longer than the inhale helps us transition into that calm and relaxed state, or what we call the parasympathetic state of the nervous system. So super simple, just breathing in for 4, breathing out for 6.
Yeah, I was just trying to do that.
Yeah, and if you were to do that for as little as 2 minutes, you would see,
that you calm down. Yeah, sounds like definitely great advice, and something I'll focus on as well, because I've known, for example, Wim Hof. I tried exercises before as well, but I don't know why I never really paid enough attention to it. So I think this may be a good catalyst for me actually to focus on it more as well.
So there's kind of like 2 things, right? It's like day-to-day breathing. So this is what I would call this, or we call this functional breathing. So how are you breathing right now? how am I breathing right now? How do you breathe when you're asleep? How do you breathe when you're walking to the gym? How do you breathe at your desk while you're working? Right? All of this has a huge impact on your nervous system. And we've just talked about that nervous system health being so important to our experience of life itself, right? But before you do any specific tool, right, like a box breathing or like a cadence breathing that we just did together, you might feel good in that moment and for a few moments after. But then if you go back to breathing poorly, which many people do, the stats range, right? Anything from 40 to some people say 90% of people just don't breathe properly, right? That's going to have a huge impact on your nervous system. So a large part of the work that I do with people is fixing that functional breathing, is getting people breathing optimally and well through the large majority of the day. So that's like foundation. And once they're breathing well, then we can add tools to then regulate the nervous system in a very specific way. So it's like functional breathing and then nervous system regulation. So there's quite, it's not necessarily as simple as like, a few exercises to either upregulate or downregulate. There's like layers to it, let's say.
And for you then working with clients, is there set span of time for how long you work with the client?
Yeah, man. So it takes time, right? It takes time. Again, in the age of social media and everyone wanting a quick fix, you can't go to one breathwork session and be healed or have your breathing issues fixed or whatever. It just doesn't work like that. So the reason why I work in the way I work is I want to leave impactful change and improvements to people's lives. And to do that, we need to work together for a certain amount of time. So 8 weeks is the minimum. I normally work with people for 8 to 10 weeks, and we build and improve aspects of breathing and other aspects of life and healthy lifestyle habits through that 8 to 10 week period, where we can really build in these habits. Yeah, it's like an 8 to 10 week period that I work.
And is there a specific target audience that you work with, or it can be pretty much anyone?
Yeah, or it's just modern life is gearing us up to just being chronically stressed. It's just set up for that, which is really unfortunate. But we spend so much time just on that wheel, and then when we're off the wheel, then, and I think this is the key. It's like I'm not saying don't go out and be good in your career, succeed, achieve. That's all great, right? I think that for some people, it's just in their blood. But it's like, are you doing that at 100%, which most people do? Because even when they're not at work, then they're achieving in something else. CrossFit, comps, Ironmans, triathlons, whatever, right? Or they're going out at the weekends and they're probably overindulging at the weekends. So it's like, if you're running on 100%, you're just not, no one is built to do that. And that will have a negative impact ultimately on our health, physical health or mental health. That will happen at some point. So it's like, well, how can you do what you really want to do and achieve everything and live that kind of life? But can you do it in a way that's healthy and sustainable, where you're not sacrificing your health, you're not sacrificing your relationships with people that are closest to you? And inevitably that happens, And so that's the key. It's not like don't do that, but I'm like, look, 85-15. And then it's that 15% of rest. Can you get true rest? So resting isn't sitting on your sofa scrolling on social media for 2 hours, right? So it's true rest. And I think that's my mission, is helping people firstly become aware of the need for true rest, but at least some true rest, and then teaching them how to do it. They can continue doing what they really want to do, not making the sacrifices that most people do.
And are there any recurring features that you can see across your clients, such as maybe that they are CEOs or business founders or
so
big
it's interesting,
athletes?
right? I mean, I worked in that industry of banking and high frequency trading companies, and all of these guys and women are in similar environments and similar roles. So you could be anyone that's in a job that's largely office based, that's high pressure, that's competitive, driven by the need to perform. All of that will create stress. Stress in itself isn't an issue, but we need to build resilience to it, tolerance to it, and we need to know how to manage it effectively. and that's where I think I'd like to come in and help people. So, but yeah, and anyone in those types of industries, and then wider than that, I think we're all facing, some level of stress and anxiety these days. Just with the
yeah, of
modern life
course.
is modern life.
Do you know, or can you say if, for example, these big companies or corporations, do they offer some kind of courses how to deal with this for their employees?
Yes, I think they do. I think wellness departments getting more and more funding year by year. In short, I think corporations are mindful of this. These are issues now. They can't be ignored now. But I still think the adoption of these habits and practices into office life or work life, I still think there's such a long way to go. So I think we're at a stage now, it's like, hey, let's get a breathwork person in to do a workshop, or let's get, another wellness expert to do a workshop. I kind of think it stops from there. Not like, well, how can we help people? Like, why isn't there like full-time people, working on wellness for their staff, like day to day and managing things? I think that's the next level.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I would, because we discussed Wim Hof, I would be curious to know from you, what do you think about ice baths?
So
if you practice that as well, and what's your opinion?
Yeah, I do. So again, what we need to remember about the ice bath, that it is another stressor, right? It's an acute stressor. So getting into the ice will stress the body, will activate the nervous system, the stress response, the sympathetic nervous system. So it's like, what's the intention? Like, why do you want to get in, right? That's the key thing. Because again, it's popular because people just like doing stuff that makes them feel good, right? Or gives them a buzz, and you get a flood of endorphins from sitting in the ice, right? And then there's the achievement aspect, and there's the egoic aspect of, I sat in the ice for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever it is, right? But I think intention is everything. So if you're someone who's super, super anxious and stressed, then getting into an ice bath might not be the right thing for you to do.
And what's then the reason for you for doing that?
So I use it in two ways. So sometimes if I've been training hard, I do a lot of sport, train a lot, and I feel like I need some perceived recovery. Then I'll jump in the ice bath because it makes me feel good. Now, whether that's actual recovery or not, at a physiological level, is still debatable in the literature and the research. There's a specific protocol that you need to do, which is 10 to 15 degrees for 10 to 15 minutes to start working on actual recovery. But sometimes just the act of getting in the ice bath for a couple of minutes or 4 or 5 minutes just makes you feel good, makes you feel better recovered. And that's just as good in a lot of ways. So I think that's just a large part of it. And also for building some resilience, right? So, it is difficult to get in the ice at the start. Using my breath, using it as a tool to manage how I respond to stress in a stressful moment is useful for me. It's helping me build resilience. So I think that's another good way, or a great way to look at ice baths is a resilience aspect. It's different. That doesn't mean sitting in the ice bath and shivering and just looking at the clock and just being like, I just need to get to 2-3 minutes, which a lot of people do. It's like, can you go inside? Can you focus on your breath? Can you stay in control of your breath and manage that stress response? So then your eyes are closed, you're it's internal. Then it doesn't matter what the clock is saying. And the minute that you feel that you can't stay in control of your breathing, which then means that your stress response kicking in, then just get out and have a look and be like, okay, cool, I got that time. But naturally then your length of time in an ice bath will increase because your resilience will increase. But it's a different way around of looking at it. And I just think that you might build some willpower by staring at the clock and shivering and getting through it. But is that really what you want to do? It's important for people to think about.
I think it's well summarized, because sometimes when I did it, I felt like, for example, those were two longest minutes in my life, because when you're in an ice bath and it's super cold, it just takes ages. But you pointed it out really well. Something to focus on when trying that again.
Yeah.
And then Harsha, what are your plans for the future? Whether it's with your coaching, with your life?
What question to, as we come to the end of our chat. Mate, we're settled in Bali. So yeah, after the 2.5 year stint in Spain, we moved to Bali in December, and really enjoying life here. You know, it's not perfect. Nowhere is, but it was working really well for us. The kids are at a good school, doing a slightly different type of education in the green school. And yeah.
Do you want them to become doctors and?
You know, I've gone completely the other way, right? As long as
No, I'm just joking.
Focused and passionate, that's all that matters, right? They can do what they want. But no, well, look, we're settling into life here, and I've got I'm in the early stages, I think, of my mission and of my business, and I really want to spread this knowledge that I've learned. I'm getting some really good results. The way I teach my breathwork is very practical. It's evidence based. We measure stuff, and we're getting some really good results, and that's just driving me to help more because I'm so confident in what I'm teaching.
I really like the content that you share. For example, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram, that it's really helpful shorts and videos. Maybe for people who want to start or want to find out more, I would highly encourage to follow, because I love the consistency, the quality, the value that you provide. So well done, and keep doing that.
Oh man, thank you. It's so hard, honestly. It's hard, right? I think, I actually, the coaching stuff I find in some ways a lot easier. It's when you're out on social medias, there's no like half-heart. You're either in or you're out. And I've decided that I need to do marketing for my coaching business, which means being involved in LinkedIn and Instagram, and that's consistency and doing things that I've never done before and getting over yourself and a whole load of stuff. It's been a huge learning curve and continues to be. But little signs of hearing little bits of encouragement from you, keep me going. So I appreciate the kind words there. Thank you.
No worries. And besides these two platforms, are there any other that you are present on, or also feel free to promote your course?
Yeah,
your breathing
I'm
course?
saying no, because two's enough. But do you know what? I think I am thinking about more long form content. I think everyone's dopamine drains are getting totally exhausted. Attention spans. I mean, we could talk for another hour on this as well.
Are you going to start YouTube channel?
I don't know about YouTube channel, because again, it's a lot, right? But just maybe some longer form audio content, helpful, really working on specific problems at each time. So giving people real practical information that they can implement. We need to go sometimes a bit deeper than short form Instagram content for that, which is great for raising awareness, but maybe doesn't solve problems in a way that it could do. So it's a space basically.
And the course, where people can find it, and if you want to slightly promote it.
Yeah, of course. If you're someone who's suffering with stress, anxiety, poor sleep, stress-related health issues, you just want to improve your performance, either at work or in sports, then I think my program is a great program that gets really, really good results, helps you build some really solid lifestyle habits that you can take on for the rest of your life. You can find or access me on LinkedIn or Instagram or my website, which is www.sfhbreathwork.com. So yeah, anyone's keen to have a chat.
Great. I will link it to the show notes. And then before we finish, is there something that you would like to share? Some final message or something I should have asked you and did not?
No, it's been, I can't believe the time's gone so quick. It's been a super cool conversation, man. I mean, there's so many things we could have got into. It feels so short, but I really enjoyed speaking with you. And in terms of a message, just say to people, don't be afraid to slow down. You can still live fast, but just live fast a little slower, because your future self will thank you for that, I'm sure. So yeah, that would be my last little bit of advice.
Yeah, I think greatly summarized. I want to say big thank you. I hope that we delivered on what I said before, that it's like a script for the film. We will see one day.
Let's see. Hold your breath.
I genuinely hope that people will follow you, because your content is really valuable. I love the consistency, so please continue. Thank you so much. I will stay in touch and will be happy to catch up in the future again. So thank you, Harsha.
Absolutely. Thank you as well.
Thanks for listening to Produced by with Tomer. Check out show notes for all the links, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your feedback. Speak soon.